Hello, this will be an RPG A Day 2022 video. This one for week 4, but not the last week. We'll still have some for an incomplete week 5 next week. So this video is going to take us from Setting Sunday for August 21st all the way through to Saturday the 27th. And this week, like all the other weeks and pretty much like all the other years, has a theme. Now, what is that theme? Well, on the surface, we're looking at character. Now, for those of you who are in one way or another self or externally classified as the forever game master, this may seem like a challenge. What, you say? I'm the game master. I don't have a character. And to that I say, fie, it's madness. Don't we say that our character is the world? I think you still have a lot to talk about, but we'll see, what comes up. Hopefully that number of forever game masters is dwindling. Hopefully there are more people out there who are taking on the collaborative nature of roleplay, and that role of game master is switching between all the players. We are all players, and some of us sometimes take on the role of game master. So if that culture of play is growing, if more people are sharing all the different duties, the character duties, the hosting duties, the snack duties, the transportation duties, the game mastering duties, whatever it takes to get your group together and playing, then hopefully a lot of people will be able to answer this question without having to do any mental gymnastics or question, how could I possibly answer this question? To question the question leads to madness or enlightenment, depending on your point of view, I guess. But enough of this stuff. Let's leap into Setting Sunday. Setting Sunday is asking us to share some intriguing, interesting, engaging detail from a game setting that you enjoy. Well, what could we share, right? There are so many interesting things. Well, I think for this event that I may spread this out a little bit. I might do one answer, because there are many, and I've been pretty disciplined throughout. One for YouTube, one for the podcast, and one for the blog. Maybe. We'll see. But for the video, I want to talk about Blue Planet, and long-term viewers of the channel may be chuckling as they remember the Blue Planet curse, the cursed game that I can't seem able to ever get into a campaign. Sure, we've played it. We've played it quite a bit, but only once or twice, and then other things get in the way. So there is a new edition of Blue Planet on its way. Successfully kickstarted already, and it's in production now. The final art assets are being assembled, the final text is being checked, that kind of stuff. And so, soon there'll be a new edition of Blue Planet to once again see if the curse can be broken. Why do I keep coming back, even though this is a game that I have failed numerous times? Well, there are so many interesting setting elements, just so many. It's science fiction setting. It's set on a remarkably well-realized world, which includes details such as, a frontier spirit, but also the kind of high technology where, cybercrime and corporate espionage are totally practical and viable hooks for things. There's exploration of the planet and its oceans and its solar system and its orbital bodies, and there's development of of these different harsh or dangerous or, awe-inspiring environments. There's just so much. And the setting element that I find particularly intriguing is the draw of the planet Poseidon to player characters. Right? Its attractiveness to them. There are so many reasons to go. The Earth is dying, right? Your future there is in doubt. The opportunities on Poseidon, seemingly unlimited, right? Start again on a new world. There are natural resources, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there are natural resources, and there are conditions for those natural resources which speak to long-held dreams of humanity, such as the extension of life and superior medical care. This is an effort to move humanity from the dying cradle of Earth onto another world that could sustain it. And so we have the very best and the brightest using the very best and most cutting-edge technology in environments which seem like the realm of science fiction and yet are fully grounded in our understanding of biological science. So it grabs players and it motivates the characters. It creates this loop of action, reaction, and interaction that I like so much. So the one distinct detail that I want to pull out is the most obvious, because I think reading through Blue Planet is a joy in and of itself, and preparing to run it is a joy. And this is something I've done joyfully many, many times, failing only to get campaign play in motion, and failing that only because of the conspiracy of the universe to interrupt and destroy my schedules. So there is, let's call it an element. There is an element on the planet that is highly sought, which has the nickname Long John, and may hold the secrets to longevity. Definitely, probably holds the secrets to longevity, but maybe holds the secrets to longevity far exceeding that of simply calling it that. What if this element, if refined properly, actually led to something more like immortality? Would the risks of Poseidon be worth it then? The immediate benefits are obvious. Corporations have flocked to Poseidon and are already benefiting from the extraction of this element. And that, of course, leads to spin-off industry and spin-off activities as humanity continues to make the voyage to Poseidon from a dying Earth. This includes crime. This includes law enforcement. This includes the military. This includes importing all those attitudes, beliefs, and mistakes that have ended up making life on Earth so difficult in our own real-world lives and in the speculated future of this game. The destruction of the environment, the breakdown of international relations, the breakdown in society through its stratified levels based solely on acquisition. So much in this game to attract, starting just with this one thing. And imagine there are many just one things like this, giving this game shape. Intriguing. Okay, let's leap into the week, right? Monday through Saturday with the who, what, when, where, why, and how of character even if you are a forever game master and your character is the world. Let's talk. Okay, so we begin with who. Who is your current character? Well, I have several. The one I feel compelled to speak about at this time is a spy, a former spy who is now living under an alias, an assumed identity. He was left for dead, abandoned to rot in some foreign jail cell after, a unfortunate political entanglements. He's made his way back to, the mother country, and he's, through virtue of his ability to adopt different roles, different guises, hold different personalities and appearances, has worked his way back into a former identity and is working for the government once again, this time for the Ministry of Unusual Affairs. And that's right, we're talking about Leagues of Gothic Horror by Triple Ace Games using the Ubiquity role-playing system. So as agents of the Ministry, there are different avenues of horror for the agents to investigate, and we have chosen to be agents of the collection, right? That branch of the Ministry of Unusual Affairs, which is responsible for retrieving things which are a threat to national security, a threat to life, limb, liberty, the soul, or whatever, of the citizens of the British Empire. So there is a delicateness that is required, and there is a fair bit of investigation, and there is a fair bit of peril. Although often agents of this type are sent in to clean up after a different branch has gone head-to-head with some sort of, violence or some sort of major resistance. These agents aren't those agents, or are they? It's hard to say. So my character is currently operating under the name of Nathaniel Ribbon. He's an agent, as I said, of the Ministry of Unusual Affairs. A highly intelligent and not exactly highly educated, but has been exposed to many things which his, steel trap of a memory manages to retain. He's a master of languages and has had to adopt a variety of roles over his years, and so has picked up all sorts of different skills and abilities. He's not a fighter. Neither is he a lover. He is very much focused on the job, ultimately of protecting the empire, of certain loyalty to the crown, but driven more, secretly driven much more by an insatiable curiosity to know. That is who I am playing. Loyal to friends, loyal to allies, otherwise a faceless, nameless, highly motivated and quite independent cog in the government espionage machine. Right? It's very interesting to play this character and to think of ways that an entirely elastic, or a willingness to have your personality be completely subsumed into a role, to have no real need to exert your own real identity, to take your best friend aside and say, look, I'm really this person. To exist without any of those human connections, I think, is interesting. And to pit such a character against people who are kind of doing the same thing, like cultists or occultists, or people who have a spotless public front and an utterly corrupt private practice. To pit this character, who may appear corrupt on the outside, but it has an iron core of fidelity to these pure ideals on the inside, is willing to sacrifice his own honor, his own moral code at times for the larger moral health. To pit them against these people who are utterly corrupt at the core, I find to be an interesting situation through which to play. Now, there are frustrations. This character is, in many ways, a support character. And one of the reasons why I enjoy playing role-playing games is, for the opportunity to take on some sort of heroic role where you get to do something actively. And I don't necessarily mean sword fighting or gunfighting or even combat at all, but some sort of front line, you against the darkness kind of situation. I think this is one of the common ways in which to play role-playing games. There is something to be opposed, and the player characters oppose it. And that's still very much happening, but the character I have chosen is designed really not to be the one in the front doing it, but instead to be supporting others, right? Yet has a skill set, a primary skill set of information acquisition, right? And so does have periods where they are independently at risk. So, they can be sent out, obtain some kind of information, bring it back, we all work on it, and then we all go out to deal with it. And in that capacity, when we all go out to deal with it, he is in definitely a secondary and supporting role. Someone else is handling it, and he is assisting with that. And so that doesn't always work out the way that you might like. You can be separated, and situations can go awry. And of course, the enemy has an opportunity to mess with your plans and so on and so forth. But the character is both the core concept is something which I've returned to more than once. And this is the second version of this particular character, and this campaign is the second version of this particular campaign. But there's something really satisfying about it. So it's this character that I'll be talking about, at least on YouTube this week. All right. There's one more detail about the character I think that we should mention, or is it a detail that I should save for later? No, I think that I will share. The one kind of unusual thing about this spy is that during his time in Asia, he has been awakened to the fact that he has lived many times before. He is awakened to the voices of the memories and the abilities of his past lives. And so in some situations where he winds up in way over his head, sometimes these personalities assert themselves and bring some skill or ability or talent along with them that makes sense. And so from a role-playing point of view, this provides kind of that Kung Fu, the series, or Kung Fu, the Legend Continues kind of experience with flashbacks to some other time, some other place, some other voice in your head, which is relevant to now, and maybe helps explain why his own personality is not all that important to him. He's more of a vehicle for a mission than he is conveying, any will to put a stamp on, I did this, I was there. Over time, there's less and less that sense of I, and more a sense of we. So it's kind of interesting. That's who I'm playing. For Tuesday, the 23rd of August, can you believe it's the 23rd of August, or it will be at some point? I'm recording this on Sunday, the 21st of August. What situation is your character currently in? Well, the characters have discovered that there is an organization running rampant in the UK which doesn't have the Empire's best interests at heart, believe it or not. And they have stolen a number of artifacts, some of which were being investigated by the Ministry of Unusual Affairs to determine if they were safe to be out among the public. There are some things that we had our eyes on, and wanting to be able to obtain them without causing a ruckus. But this organization, this shadowy organization, beat us to the punch. And so now these artifacts are beginning to appear spread out across black markets for a variety of reasons, maybe to cause chaos, but probably mainly to generate funds for this organization. They were stolen in order to be sold, which means it's going to be even harder to track where they go and what they are and what they do. So of particular concern to us was this large tome, which of course purports to be a magical tome, right? And it's an ancient codex which focuses on dealing with the dead. Now we have rubbed shoulders with a variety of people who are highly placed in British society, who are high enough placed that you start to think that they are, above the law, and that the certain networks that fiction have made famous, the Old Boys Network and this sort of stuff, might make it difficult for us to act against them overtly. So it's very much a race against time. Where are these objects and where could they be sold? So we've captured low-level members of this shadowy troublemaking organization and tried to piece together the clues that our interrogations and trickery have enabled us to obtain, and we've raced into these black market areas trying to find any place where the stuff might appear. And so we have identified different parts of territories which are starting to bear the mark of this shadowy organization. And we have reclaimed, claimed, this codex. And this is the situation that we are now in. We've obtained it. We snatched it out from almost under the nose of one of these powerful nobles who's very interested in it, someone who could leverage the resources to buy it, who might be contacted directly by these surreptitious sellers of illicit goods to say, I've got this thing which you might be interested in, come and get it. So we've managed to snatch it up. What does that mean? What is ahead for us? And what kind of vengeance might we expect from the shadowy organization which is trying to broker this sale in the first place? So who knows? So the role of the spy that I'm playing is beginning to diminish, right? The period of information acquisition is coming to a close, and we're transitioning into that moment of action where I take on the role of a supporting character. And so I'm kind of excited to see who I'll get paired up with and which of my skills and abilities will be helpful to them, and what past lives might surface as a result of all of this. Wednesday brings us to when. So, when did you start playing this character? Well, there are two answers to that. As I said, this is kind of a reboot of an earlier campaign, which was done on a different platform at a different time, and ran for quite a while, and then kind of ran itself out. But we weren't really finished with the characters. We weren't really finished with the idea. But different people had been involved in the campaign at different times, and I had switched characters at some point. So we kind of went back to basics, and we rebooted with lessons learned under our belts and that sort of thing about who the characters are and how they're fun to play them and stuff. So when recently, I can't even quite remember. It's been more than a year that we've been playing. We've been playing in Discord, and this character idea, the idea of the spy character who prefers to operate always as someone else, is quite an old idea for me. But getting a chance to play the character for real, long term, this is the first time that has happened, and has definitely proven to be a very satisfying experience. There's something about this concept which still leaves me a lot to explore, and it doesn't. These aspects of character aren't terribly important. They are the sorts of things that manifest, at the beginning of an adventure, at the beginning of an investigation or a mission, or these kinds of things. So as we are, receiving information from the major NPCs that we work for, as we're beginning to do our investigations to fill in more of the truth, that's when these character aspects matter. And so they don't overshadow my experience of the character. They're just, a healthy and interesting part of the character. So that's my answer for when. It's as nebulous as the character's personality themselves. For Thursday, we get to where has that character been? Well, both the original version of the character and the original version of the campaign and this one were assigned, to the Foreign Office, that kind of thing, and we're in Asia. And we've left it a little vague about where exactly and why exactly the character is placed there, and what exactly the nature of the betrayal was. It's not really relevant to the campaign. It's only really relevant to why the character is the way that they are and operating in the ministry. So maybe it will come up as a point of interest in the future, or maybe not. It doesn't need to. It just can. So there's not a heavily developed backstory attached to this character. But one of the core things that has been true is that they were far from home. And so it's easy for me to imagine far from home as being in Asia. And so we looked around at the dates, and we found some interesting situations where the British Empire was paying attention to French holdings in Asia at the time. And so there are, the distinct possibility that there were British holdings which could easily incorporate espionage operations. Whether this is, embassies or some kind of shipping and manufacturing holdings, this sort of thing. But there's a way to have a large staff in place where one more staff member doesn't really, stand out, who can, earn their keep by fulfilling a normal administrative function, but at the same time be required to hobnob with all these foreign dignitaries and foreign businessmen and that sort of thing, and maintain a sense of what's going on. But for some reason, some scandal takes place, of which the character is completely innocent, but winds up being a very easy scapegoat. And this operation is canceled. All the staff, all the important staff, all the connected staff are pulled back. And this character is left to rot in a jail. Nathaniel Ribbon, who is at this time not known as Nathaniel Ribbon, is left to rot in a jail cell, and the government believes he's still there, if they even think about him at all. But of course, over time, he managed to escape and make his way back to his homeland. And knowing that he cannot appear because of the potential scandal that would cause to his superiors, but still wanting a certain amount of ability to get his own back without betraying the empire. This is the interesting thing that I get to play with. That not a real desire for revenge, but a desire for recognition. And an investigation of whether or not the people who betrayed him could do that to the empire. Right? But mainly being motivated to serve. And so finagles his way into the Ministry of Unusual Affairs to, work for the good of the empire and be in a position to keep an eye and potentially have power that could be leveraged against people who are so high up in society that they would escape the normal reach of the arm of the law. So where has that character been? In deep, dark pits and in tough circumstances, working their way back home, penniless, with nothing to their name, including an identity, making their way back to their homeland and making their way back into, the profession which cost them everything. So that's where they have been. The question for August 26 is the why question. Why does your character do what they do? And I've, of course, talked about this quite a bit during the who is your current character and that sort of stuff. But why do they do what they do? In Ubiquity, you are provided with things like motivations, archetypes, and flaws. So beginning with the flaw, the character is curious. The character is also loyal, but the one we focus on is curious, meaning that they are compelled, and I should play the character like they are drawn, right? I should play the character so that curiosity is a flaw, and that will open up new avenues of possibly obtaining new information, but also explains why the character might have gotten into this kind of role, right? Espionage, spying on people, trying to find out secrets is as old as clannish behavior, I suppose. But at the same time, this as a role, as a government function, is in a sense in its infancy, or at least the modern idea of it is in its infancy. And so this insatiable curiosity is one of the reasons why someone might be drawn to it. Why? Well, also there is this sense of past lives, right? And those past lives being able to intrude into the character, and where he can speak in their languages and he can draw on their skills and draw on their talents. In Ubiquity, some of the major things that your character can do are codified under something called talents. And some talents add abilities to characters, things that other characters simply cannot do, things like danger sense or direction sense. But many talents either extend or magnify what you can do. So they provide higher bonuses to do a particular action than would normally be applicable. Or they, in some way, break a rule. In Ubiquity, you can make one attack, you can make one move, and you can, kind of open-endedly, but with reduced capacity, defend all the attacks that are coming in against you. Right? So talents can do things like provide an additional attack, which normal characters don't get, or do something to move, which no one else has access to, or allow your defense to not degrade over time, or to degrade to a lesser extent, that sort of thing. So he has access to all of these things. His personality is fluid. So again, ideal in the fulfillment of his duties as an espionage agent of the Crown. Why does the character do what they do? Highly intelligent, unnaturally intelligent, far beyond the range that you might expect in terms of intelligence, and not much else. Right? The character is pretty much average in all other regards, and so this also informs this nature of, like, why be a spy? Why not be something else? Well, they're not cut out to be all that physical. They're not cut out to be all that charming. They're not cut out to be, anything other than fluid, right? They can look at the world and analyze it with a high degree of accuracy and make choice as to where their allegiance should lie. And everything else is secondary to that. They go unnoticed in a crowd, and they can learn skills to magnify that ability. Not particularly memorable, right? Not particularly abrasive, not particularly attractive, not particularly charming, not particularly awkward, right? And so through the benefit of skill and learning and observation and the whispering voices of a past life, they become particularly talented at fulfilling this role. So why does the character do what they do? Because they can. Because they can do it in a way that other people can't. Because they have chosen a side and they are loyal to it. And because it's one way to satisfy that insatiable curiosity. So that's why. One of the reasons why I picked this character out of my choices of current characters is for today's question, the how question. So this is Saturday, the 27th of August, right? Which seems quite far away now, but soon, of course, will be upon us. So how has the character changed? I have two distinct answers for this. One, this is the second version of the character I'm getting to play. I'm playing a rebooted version of the character. And the character has grown even in the short time we've played. Like a year of time is not nearly as much time as it would be playing, even in video conferencing software, playing online, right? So the character has changed quite rapidly, even at the slow pace of play-by-post. The original version of the character was trying very hard to be a jack of all trades. This is very difficult to do in Ubiquity without some very specific talents. But talents in Ubiquity are very expensive. And so having those talents kind of delays your ability to get into a position where you can do the kinds of things that I wanted to do. So that first one was a former sharpshooter who is recruited out of that squad into the early version of the intelligence community. And that first version of the character was an orphan who grew up in state-run orphanages, which led to a military boarding school kind of education, which led to military education, which led to stints in the military, which led to then all these different operations, and became the support mechanism for a great web of contacts. So this character knew everybody. This was very interesting to play with. So the way that information was acquired was through this network of contacts. And so these network of contacts would surface and submerge again in the different missions that we were playing. It was a lot of fun. That's the core of the original character. The original character did not have past lives, but we were beginning to work toward the revelation that they had kind of a ghostly mentor. That some of the situations that led to where they were in play were because of the manipulations behind the scenes of this mentor character. But that campaign went in very different directions from that, and that idea of having that be something that would manifest down the road, it was no longer appropriate to manifest. So the new version of the character was designed, instead of with a lot of their skills, a lot of the points placed into skills, instead took all of those points and placed them into talents. Two talents in particular. One was the intelligent talent, which allows the character to be 1 point more intelligent than you would normally be able to be. And so, breaking the rules of ubiquity in a sense. It's that kind of talent. So this character has a 6 intelligence where characters are on a scale of 1 to 5. And the past life talent. So these two things enable that aspect of the character who can at least try an awful lot of things, who can be represented as having had broad experience in a wide number of fields, right? That large intelligence part of the die pool, right? Attribute plus skill kind of die pool, that large intelligence enables them to have a reasonable number of dice regardless of points put in the skill. So that works out. And the past lives is a way to bring in that kind of supernatural aspect without requiring there to be another character, like a mentor character or all of the different burdens that some kind of major NPC as a mentor or as a major ally or as a patron, that kind of thing, might cause in a campaign, right? It shifts the focus away from needing to interact with that character in any way, and just allows this whole thing to occur inside the character's mind. The other players are aware that the character has past lives. The other characters that he plays with are completely unaware of it. And the original character had false identities created for him by the government, and was kind of rebuilding their life, and was known fairly broadly as Nathaniel Ribbon. And so we were kind of doing the James Bond thing. So his webs of contacts would refer to him as Ribbon, Nathaniel Ribbon. And we were just kind of glossing over or imagining the fact that he's using false names with everybody else, right? So all the player characters know his name, his official spy name, and his contacts from his youth, they all know him as that. That's his name as far as they're concerned. But he had these different other aliases that he operated under, and people in government, the contacts were protecting him. They weren't sharing the fact that he was back, that kind of stuff. So there was more risk in that character. This new character, Nathaniel Ribbon, is just one of many aliases. He has no contacts. He has no ties. He's come back with nothing, right? And he's just kind of slipped into this life, and no one recognizes that he's not Nathaniel Ribbon, and that Nathaniel Ribbon is not a real person. And I find that to be even more satisfying than the original concept. So how's the character changed? That's one way. The other way is that during several of the adventures that we've had on our missions this time around, he has been forced to awaken past lives which he hadn't been exposed to before, right? And has witnessed abilities which surpass his understanding, such as bringing an ancient druid with mystical abilities into his foremind, to the point where he was able to cast a magical ritual, an exorcism, that temporarily saved our lives. He's still wrestling with not the fact that magic is real, but that he himself, who has no skill. This is not just like a memory, right? That appeared. This was a different and very powerful experience for him. And so these kinds of experiences, these touches with the supernatural sourced within him, have opened his mind to possibility and made him wonder what he should be doing. They have introduced doubt and question where there was none, about who he is and what he can do. Whereas before, he didn't care who he was. That was irrelevant. His own needs, desires, whatever, these are not even secondary. They're beyond tertiary. But now, is he serving his country to the best of his ability if he doesn't harness and develop this ability further? So that's kind of where the character is now in the time we've had to play him. So I hope these responses have been interesting. Sometimes it's difficult to listen to other people talk about their characters, but then again, I think there's a lot of value in hearing about games and how games support what we do as players and what people are interested in and how the written word translates into the action of play. But anyway, until next week, that's it for RPG A Day 2022 for YouTube, for me, until next time. And until next time, take care.